Welcome to the Rising Tide Leadership Podcast, where we simplify the complexities of your leadership journey. This year, remember that our focus is on identity and influence, because you can't influence, but you haven't first identified, both in yourself and in others. So just remember, again, before we dive into this podcast, if you want all the nitty gritty, if you want all the background, make sure you head over to our website, sign up for our newsletter. Shameless plug here, so that you don't ever miss an episode, an insight, so that you can get connected with us, so that you can get one of those free sessions with Mo, so that you can find out more about yourself, so that you can discover your leadership journey, where it should begin and or where it should go. So as always, I am Scott, and I am joined by Dr. Michael David Morales. Known to many of you who have listened to the podcast before, or if you haven't, naturally, you will find out that he is known as Mo.
What up, Scotty P? Good to be here, man. You said offline that the story today is wild, so I'm ready for it. Give it to me.
Yeah, so I reached kind of into the history, not archives per se, but kind of the history obscure stories. I feel like for the most part, for most of our leadership-related stories, it's always, it's easily identifiable, but I went into the news archives for this one, and not super far back, but here we go. So the strongest teams aren't built because everyone has the same skills. So they succeed because people with different strengths know how to come together, adapt, and contribute when a situation demands something different. One of the most powerful examples of this actually comes from 2018, from the rescue of the wild boars, which, if you don't remember, this made national news, or not even national, international news, I should actually say. But the wild boars was the youth soccer team that was trapped deep inside a cave system in Thailand. So what began as a search and rescue mission quickly became one of the most complex rescue operations in modern history, requiring individuals from around the world to combine their unique expertise in one unified effort. And this made international news. I don't know if you remember this, Mo, but this was all over the news. But when 12 young soccer players and their coach became trapped inside the Thailand cave system, the challenge was unlike anything any rescuers had ever faced before. The cave was flooded, visibility was nearly zero, and the narrow passages made traditional rescue methods impossible. No single person had the answer, and the solution required a team made up of hundreds of people with completely different skill sets. Professional cave divers brought technical expertise in navigating underwater passages. Engineers brought ways to manage flooding and pump water out of the cave. Medical teams prepared for physical and psychological challenges the boys would face. Local volunteers provided food and logistics and support. And overall, each group brought a different strength, but the mission only moved forward when those strengths connected and adapted together. What made the Tai Lung cave rescue successful was not one person having the perfect solution. It was a team willing to learn from one another, adjust their roles, and put the mission above individual expertise. The best teams are not made up of people who can do everything. They are made up of people who understand what the best, or what they do best, I should say, and are willing to adapt when the team needs something different. The rescue became a reminder that collective flexibility is created when individual strengths are not competing for recognition, but working together toward a common purpose. And that's really the lesson from the Thai cave rescue. I remember being gripped by this when it made the news, and I have no idea why. It's probably the same reason why we all watch car chases when they make the news. We don't know why. It's the same thing over and over. But adaptability doesn't begin when a crisis happens, it begins long before that, by building teams where people understand the value of their own strengths and the strengths of those around them. Because when every person knows what they uniquely contribute, the team becomes capable of far more than any individual could accomplish on their own. And that brings us really ultimately to what we're talking about today, and brings us kind of all the way around to our kind of first key principle of team adaptability, and individual strengths are the foundation of everything. And so, Mo, kind of let's get into talking about why understanding and kind of maximizing those individual strengths is where those great teams begin.
Yeah, great story. I don't remember that story. I do vaguely, but I didn't follow it very closely. But when you brought it up, I thought, oh, that's right. I kind of remember that. So, and your story made the point. If you want to focus on team adaptability, I mean, you really have to start with individual strengths, right? That is the foundation. And so what does that mean? Well, the question for the audience today, right off, is do you know your strengths? We love Gallup Strengths Finder, and we've all taken it. I've taken it, Scotty. You've taken it. It's one of my two favorite assessments. It's my second favorite assessment to the DISC assessment, right? And I mean, really, I like to focus on that. One, if you don't know your strengths, take the Gallup Strengths Finder. We don't offer that, but we do help people navigate through that because I've taught that for the last 25, 30 years. But what we focus on, Scotty, and you know this because I talk about it all the time, is we do what's called behavioral style mapping, and that's the DISC assessment. And so, leaders, most of us out here, you know, we need to ask ourselves, how do we want to be managed? This only works if we know the people who are managing us and leading us, and if we know ourselves. And so that's why we take the DISC assessment, and we use Wiley because it gives the team a shared approach, shared language, and understanding of how we can work together. And so I'll give you just kind of one of our stats, and that's this: the DISC is one of the most widely used behavioral assessments in the world. When I was deciding how we wanted to lead from who we are, that's what we want to do here at Rising Tide. You know, are you leading from who you are? Well, if you want to lead from who you are, you have to know who you are. The Wiley report, when I first took it, and now over 1 million people have taken it, it really opened up my eyes. That research was helped me to understand the development cycle of my own life, the improvement cycle, the communication effectiveness that I do, what I was doing right and what I was doing wrong. And so that's why it's important. And Scotty, let me ask you, when you first took the DISC assessment and you found out, I don't think it was shocking that you found out that of your DISC style, but why don't you tell us what your style is and what you learned about yourself the first time that you took it?
Yeah, so it's most of the assessments that I've taken have not been ultimately very shocking. And so when you go on the self-discovery train of learning about yourself, the more that you learn about yourself and the more assessments that you partake in, the less shocking they become. But
Yeah.
yeah, when I took my DISC assessment, it came back. I'm a solid I, and for those of you that don't know, I is for influence, and so essentially, it is the most outgoing of all the letters. So it essentially just kind of insinuates that I am incredibly outgoing, that I like talking to people, that I like getting out there, I like interacting with others, which is one of the main reasons why Mo asked me to help host this podcast with him or co-host this podcast with him. It's why I'm the person that does the story at the beginning and does that and does the research for that. And so, in a way, one of the things that it did for me, it wasn't surprising. Like I said, that was my result. But in a way, it more just solidified that is the thing that I should lean into. And same with my Clifton Strengths Finder. That solidified that as well. One of my big ones that we always make fun of is woo, which is winning others over. It's not my top strength, but it is number two. And so again, just solidifying the fact that one of the biggest strengths that I have is essentially connection, is being able to talk to other individuals, being able to speak in public, being able to connect with others. And so those are the things that I lean into. And what those assessments have done for me is just add essentially a foundation to those things that I kind of already knew. And so I'm able to build upon those things and really develop those as I move forward.
Yeah, and that's really important, leaders. As you heard Scotty talk about his personality, it's important for me as the leader of this company to understand my people. So I want to understand Scott. I don't want to talk to him the way that I would like to be talked to because that's very different. Which leads me to the second sub point of this main point, which is, are you creating psychological safety for your people? We talk about that a lot here. Your strengths are going to get expressed in an environment with the people that you work with, and they're going to show up fully, right? So when I go away with the Army for any amount of time, if it's 2 weeks or more, the mask starts getting let down. You can go spend a weekend with somebody, with friends or family, and you can kind of keep that mask up. But just like Benjamin Franklin says, fish and guests start to smell after 3 days, which means, hey, after we spend some time together, we're going to start to get to know each other, which is good. I want to get to know my soldiers. I want to get to know my people. I want to spend time with them. But I need to create a psychological safety because People are expecting me as leader to help them be their best. And so think about this. Psychological safety is defined by the Harvard Business School, and I wrote this down. It's defined as the belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. Leaders, are you practicing that in your life? What is psychological safety and what is it not? Let me start with what it's not. Psychological safety is not about being nice. It's not about avoiding conflict. A lot of you people out there that have a high D personality, meaning a dominant personality, or a high C personality, which is a conscientious personality, you're thinking, well, Mo, I don't want to deal with that psychological safety stuff, that soft skill, because I'm all about confronting conflict head on. I'm about telling it how it is. I speak the truth. That's not what I'm saying. Psychological safety isn't about how you act towards somebody. It's about who you are. It's about creating a climate where candor, risk taking, learning from failure, those are all normalized. Now, anybody who knows me as a sports coach, and for those of my swimmers and divers who are listening, they know that Coach Mo, nobody yells more and louder and gets more upset than Coach Mo. Well, I drive my team hard. I expect big things of them, but my team, those who have spent any time with me coaching them, know, man, Coach Mo loves me because he's going to push me, and I'm not going to get any skin off Mo. I better bring my A game. And they know that I want the best for them. I create a psychological safety so they can come and say, Coach, I've got a problem. This is what I'm dealing with. Can we sit down? I need you to give me some advice on this, that, or the other thing. So it's not about how you act. You're different. The way that you lead, the way that people see you on a day-to-day basis, you need to be who you are. But are you creating psychological safety? Do your people feel like the climate that they're in is true and real, and that they can take risks, that they can bring their failures to you? What it also isn't is this. It's not a therapy session. It's not a no accountability zone. I have to put that one in for Scotty. Scotty's a big accountability guy. And Scotty doesn't like to be in a
Big.
place that has no accountability. Scotty's out. I know that. He wants to be accountable and he wants others to be accountable to him. I know that's important for him. So think about this, leaders. High safety plus high accountability, that's your performance zone. Where are you in that?
Yeah, I think that's psychological safety is such an important point, especially if we're talking not only about like the current workplace, but additionally, we're talking about, Gen Z who is very, very quickly moving into this workplace, if not saturating it at this point, but also Gen Alpha, who's moving into this workplace. Like they are looking for psychological safety. And, regardless really of the generation moving into it, it's just something that you as a leader should be looking for, that you as a leader should be doing, to create a workplace that flows, to create a workplace that is cohesive, to create a workplace that is successful. If you look at Google, if you look at IBM, if you look at Apple, if you look at any of these successful companies, if you want to look at these successful investment firms like BlackRock or anything like that, these companies have a net of psychological safety, and that's why they work so well together. And
Yeah. And Scott, if I could say one more thing about that, what you said just made me think about this. Leaders, you have to know this. The primary driver of psychological safety is the leader. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. The buck stops with you. If you've got a problem on your team, you're the problem. It's not your people. It's never your people. Your responses to bad news, to mistakes, disagreements, those all set the tone. If you punish honesty, even subtly, or in a passive aggressive way, your team is going to go quiet, and then you're going to say, well, my team just doesn't work well together. Yeah, newsflash, it's your fault. You're the problem.
yeah, I mean, we always say on this podcast, right? Everything rises and falls with leadership, and leadership is from the top
Absolutely.
down. And so, yep, if you've got an issue with your team and it's not going well, then it's your problem. So, unfortunately, it is your problem. Anyway, so overall, though, it sounds kind of from what you're saying that it's not really about the smartest people on paper, but overall, it's about kind of just creating that space where everybody wants to show up. So let's kind of shift into that second point for today, and let's talk more so about what it looks like for a team, kind of at the team level, so to say, rather than just at that leadership level.
Right. So the second point, Scotty, is this: collective flexibility equals intentional systems. I love intentionality. I love systems. Both of them together, it's a dream. What is the collective flexibility, leaders, of your team? Are you creating intentional systems? If you move from foundation, which is individual strengths plus safety, to the architecture, which is how teams are built to flex in times of you know tough times, this section is for you. It's the practical way that you can put action to your team. So here's what I want you to know: adaptability requires overlap. What do I mean by that? When every person only knows his or her lane, any disruption, meaning if someone leaves, someone gets sick, there's a role shift, anything can all of a sudden break the team. You do not want to be there. That's not where you want to live. Cross-training builds redundancy and agility into a system of intentionality. That's important. I was looking at the LinkedIn Learning workspace, and it says this. And again, I wrote this down. Let me see where it's at. There it is. 94% of employees say they would stay longer at a company that invests in their career development. Man, we have been saying that for years. Why is Kevin such a great leader? Because he always wanted what was best for Mo. When I have people that are working for me, or I have student athletes that are competing for me, I'm always looking out for their best interest. If something comes up and there's a situation where I could do something that's going to help me, and then I look and say, but if I have them do this, it's probably going to help their career better, even though it's going to make me work a little bit harder to fill a gap in our team. I'm going to help that person because I want their career trajectory to continually rise. Leaders, are you doing that with your team? Here's what cross-training looks like. Job shadowing, role rotations, peer teaching sessions, co-leading projects, or even just having people document their processes. All these things help others to be able to step in. And so ask yourself this as a leader, right? So leaders, this is what we're asking ourselves. If a person got hit by a bus tomorrow, what would it break? And this is actually called the bus theory. That's your cross-training priority list. Every critical function should have at least one backup that understands it. Hopefully that's not you, but sometimes it has to be you because, again, everything, rises and falls on leadership. It's all up to you. But leaders, are you developing a backup plan? A lot of football teams are big on this because they have what's called the depth chart. Scotty P, being a football athletic trainer for so many years, I know that all of the teams that you worked for had a depth chart. You
Yep.
knew who was the starter. You knew who was the second guy, the third guy, and probably even a fourth guy in a lot of instances. And what do we say when somebody gets hurt or sick? We say, next man up. Because the people behind, you should be ready to go. So you want your people to be thinking, okay, if Scotty can't do this, my first thought is, okay, who's the next man up? Is that me? Is that somebody else that I could have fill in for him? Well, I've got to think about that. I'm the leader. Leaders, what are you in charge of? Who's the next man, the next woman up for you?
That's such a great point that you make there. And I think too that we need to think when it comes to growing and developing our individuals at the workplace too, we have to think beyond the immediate. And so it just really resonated. And if our listeners, if you've listened to the last few podcasts that we put out, you know that I recently left my job, but that in reality is one of the many reasons and one of kind of the chief reasons I would say that I left my job is there was no room for growth and nobody was helping me or providing me with opportunities to grow. My immediate department, we had a budget, we had line items for us to obtain CEUs and everything, and that was great because I could continue to learn new skills as an athletic trainer, but there wasn't an opportunity for more really responsibility. There weren't really opportunities for me to grow as a leader. There weren't opportunities for me to take on those other tasks that weren't directly related to kind of learning a new skill as an athletic trainer and that advancement that I truly wanted and that I needed for my leadership growth. And so, looking for those opportunities kind of outside the box, outside of more of those specific skill sets that your employees or your coworkers or whoever may have, is something to consider as a leader there, really. So Mo,
Yeah,
kind of.
and
Oh, go
leaders,
ahead.
leaders, I want you to hear what Scott's saying. What he's essentially saying is he was not in what we need to be in, which is an adaptive leadership culture. Are you creating an adaptive leadership culture? Cross training builds skills. Scotty was always looking to get better, but adaptive culture is what makes those skills available under pressure. Right. So this comes down to how leaders show up emotionally or don't show up in many cases, and how they check in with their teams and whether flexibility is modeled from the top. And what you need to hear in Scott's instance is he was not experiencing that. Are you leading in such a way where you are creating that kind of adaptability? You want a leadership culture where you're at. You want to duplicate yourself and work yourself out of a job. So you should be focusing on emotional intelligence, because adaptive leaders always read the room. Leaders, if I'm a leader for Scott, I'm always wanting to know what's next for Scott. What is his energy off today? Is he feeling engaged or disengaged? Is there tension within him or other people in the building? Emotional intelligence allows you and me to respond and not just react. We do not want to react. If you're reacting, you're already losing. And so remember, self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, social skills, these are all the things that we learned from the great book, Emotional Intelligence 2.0. And if you haven't read it, you gotta read that, because leaders, if you're not doing that, you're going to lose your best people.
I feel like I want to say something, but it's going to take us down such a rabbit hole. So we're going to need to save it. But Mo, before we kind of sign off for today, do you have any of your final thoughts for us?
Yeah, just one, leaders. This week, I want you to do one thing. I want you to pull out your team roster and ask yourself, do I know the behavioral style of each of the people on my team? You probably haven't taken the DISC assessment. That's why we're here. But you should know their behaviors, even if you don't know how to name them. Also, ask this. Do I know how they process information, handle conflict, how they respond under pressure? If the answer is no, that's your starting point. Get your team DISC assessed. Have a debrief conversation. That's where we come in. And adaptability starts with knowing who you're actually leading. So know your people and lead them well.
And help them grow.
Absolutely.
That's
100.
That's Scotty's final thoughts for today.
I love it.
Well, we appreciate you all spending part of your day with us here. So thank you so much for listening or watching, whichever one you're doing. If you enjoyed what you heard, as always, please make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe. It's so important for us. It just helps everybody discover the show. And we all know that those that listen enjoy it. So help other people enjoy it. Remember to swing by rtclc.com, join that monthly newsletter, check out the website. Please do that so you can hop on and get those deeper insights. Until next time, lead with purpose, stay authentic, and make an impact.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you for listening to the Rising Tide Leadership Podcast. Highlights and resource links are available for you in the show notes. We hope that you will join us next week as we continue on the leadership journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out, and share with others so they don't miss out. See you next week.